All right, gang, Professor McElroy here. Welcome to week 2, learning module 2. Today's all about writing script. We're going to go into CSS. We're going to go into Dreamweaver templates. We're going to edit some code, get some cause and effect going on, get you guys kind of seeing how this kind of relationship between files happen. Last week was week 1, so we learned some glossary terms, got a little basic foundation of what is this thing we're navigating through, playing in, doing, and we made our first web page. So that was a success, right? My first web page, we embedded a video, we built a basic HTML platform, right? With the head tag and the title tag and the body tag, and we did paragraph breaks, and we made certain words bold and other words italic. We talked a little bit about HTML tags. At the end of class, we took a look briefly at Dreamweaver and how to connect to a folder. And we talked a little bit about FTP, transferring files between your local computer and this virtual real estate or the server that we're uploading the files to. That is a computer that everyone connects to, so you can share your files with the world, right? There's over 15 billion web pages out floating around there. They do the exact same process we're doing, right? They're building locally, uploading remotely. They own an IP address or a web address where you can go to www.chip.com and see whatever I uploaded up there. We learned that there's only one unique identifier to that. I own chip.com, someone else can own chip.edu, somebody else can own chip.gov, right? We all kind of are playing in the same protocol or environment, and that's why we're learning the process we're learning. We kind of ended week 1 around 9:15 or 9:30, and your homework was to replace the 6 posters in the index page of the zip file we downloaded, so that this week we could start going in and actually reconstructing that folder of files and making it uniquely ours. By the end of this evening, we will have completed the skills from chapters 3 and 4. So if you haven't done those chapters beyond reading, you can give me the files that we're doing tonight for chapters 3 and 4, because we're doing all the same CSS, basic wireframe editing, all that. You can also give me the files at the end of tonight if we finish them all for the out of book for learning module 1 and the out of book for learning module 2, because it's all this encompassing project that we're working on tonight. I'm hoping that we get through editing all the code and editing individual pages. If we get to that, then we'll be able to complete all 3 of those things, check the boxes off, and we're able to move on. That will give us the homework of just reviewing the basic wireframe chapter. And it's actually just a still to show you the parts that we're editing in here and some basic template editing, which is actually what we're doing here tonight as well. I want to get to that point. So next week, I can show you cloud-based tools, how you can actually build and edit in the cloud using a management system that is embedded in the browser that takes Dreamweaver out of the equation. So if we get to writing code and building our own pages and understanding the relationship of all the parts, next week going into a cloud-based environment, a WordPress, a Wix, any of those templatized web-based tools will already know the terminology. And that's the goal, so that we know the parts, so that when we go into a cloud or a web-based environment, we can edit those things very easily. And those tools are very front-end oriented. The only catch is you got to kind of know what they're talking about in order to know why you're editing or what you're looking for to edit. So that's kind of the baby steps I'm trying to get us to for next week. So hopefully everyone has their shows or their movie folder that we downloaded from the zip file last week somewhere available. If you don't, then you'll have to download from the announcement section my movie zip file again, because we need those folders. I want to reconnect with Dreamweaver, and we're going to actually start editing this thing. So by the end of the night, you could go off and build your own web pages if you wanted, based on the template files I provided for you. So that's where we want to get. Hopefully you swapped out the pictures, but I'm just going to highlight that at the beginning of the lecture just to say, hey, remember, this is how we did it as we move on. But if you don't have those files, please go in the announcement section and re-download. I think I call it the out of book movie files. It's a zip file, and it has all the index and all the HTML files, and it has the CSS folder, and it has the images folder. We need that. So if we edit that stuff tonight, and you don't have something to take it with you with, you're going to need to re-zip it and email it to yourself, because I don't want you to do the work in the lecture and then have to go home and do the work again. I mean, you can watch the lecture and redo it if you want to, but we're going to physically do it in class. So hopefully you have some kind of cloud storage or some kind of thing you can store it on so that you have access to it later. And also remember, when you're uploading files for me, I need all the files. Don't just give me an HTML file. Don't just give me the CSS file. Can I save your file into my folder and see everything? Yeah, because I have all the parts. But just make it easy for me. If you're going to submit something, give me a zip file with everything that's in the project. So if it's lesson 4, give me the whole lesson 4 folder. If it's the movie project we're working on, give me the whole movie folder. Don't give me just the index file or just the CSS. Yes, if the chapter is only talking about CSS and you give me the CSS file and I stick it in the folder I already have, I will see what you did perfectly fine. But I want you to get into the best practices process, that when you create something for a multimedia solution, that you need all the parts. You can't just send a client one piece of it and they're going to be like, what is this? Like if you just send me the HTML file and there's CSS attached to it, I don't actually see anything that you created other than the HTML text. It isn't formatted at all. It's just stacked on the page because the script is what's driving the container. So if I don't have the script that drives the container, my container is center aligned, just stacked. Can I see all the parts, see that you edited it, know that it will look correctly? Yes, but I need all the parts. So just get comfortable with the fact that the root directory folder, the folder for the primary project, you have to give me all the pieces. So you got to get comfortable with editing in that environment and uploading in that environment. Because if you spend 3 weeks building this beautiful web solution for a family friend, they own some business and they want a website, and you create this thing and you take your laptop to their house and they're like, this thing is amazing. Here's my host. Here's my URL. Can you upload it for me? And you just upload the index file. It's not going to look right. If you upload all of the pieces, but not the scripts folder, it's not going to look right. If you leave any part of the process out, it's not going to look right. So pictures, the whole 9 yards. You might see it locally, but if it's pointing to something outside of the folder locally, the world isn't going to see it. Even though your computer is smart enough to know that that picture's on your desktop, but all the other files are in your folder. It'll look fine on your computer, but the minute you upload it, it's going to be all kinds of jargon missing. So just know, for best practices, yeah, I'll give you the points. I can see you did it, but just know that it's got to travel as a package. So when we're creating things, we are in a root directory and a subdirectory environment, right? This is my root directory, McElroy_shows. I got to point Dreamweaver to that. If I want to upload to a server, I got to take that folder and upload it to the public HTML folder. This thing has to travel together. If I have any files outside of these files over here, my computer knows it, Dreamweaver knows it, but the relationship of that image to these files will be broken the minute it goes remotely and it's no longer locally, okay? So just know that that part of the process. And I'll have students get to the end of the process we're doing and they'll ask a question 3 months later. They'll email me and I'm like, yeah, shoot me a question anytime you want. And I'll be like, well, remember when local doesn't equal remote. So you just need to make sure that things travel in a package. So when I archive web designs for my clients, I archive the whole folder. And I think I said last week, when I open up Dreamweaver, I have a client list of every website I've ever built for someone pointing to my external drive. So if I plug that external drive in and I go to Dreamweaver and do the site manage sites, I can find every client that I've created a website for in probably the last 10 years. They go further than that, they're on a different external drive, but I have cataloged all these. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to help them. And you're going to quickly find out, if you ever like web design, you want to do any level of web design as a side job, or you want to make it your job, that organization's wicked important, because if you know where the stuff is, someone's always going to come back and ask you to edit something. It still happens to me today. I created something 20 years ago, and I'll have clients after 10 years come back to me and say, you know, that website you built for me, I really liked it, and I'm thinking about editing a few pages. Well, luckily for them, I have all the files and I've kept them all. So just stay organized. I should be getting zip files for almost about every submission, other than if I'm just like, there isn't anything to save, so you can just do a screenshot of it. So when you give me a screenshot, that's fine. But when we're doing actual functioning code, I need to have all the pieces. And we learned yesterday that the index page is the splash page, the landing page, the home page, and that's where we'll always start. So tonight, we're going to start exactly where we left off last week. We need to open up Dreamweaver and we need to make a local site connection. So over here, we need to see your last name underscore movies, your last name underscore shows, whatever you name that folder at the end of last week to replace pictures in. That's what we need. If you have to re-download the zip file, re-download it to computer, but make sure you change the name again. Don't give me McElroy Movies, because I've already got, as you can see by my site managed site, I've already got like 9 of those listed in my FTP connection. So we need to connect. So remember, we have to go to site, manage sites first, and let's see if your site appears here. If you go into your Dreamweaver and go to site, manage sites, if your folder still exists in the place that it was prior when we were in the end of last class, it will appear here as your last name and whatever the name of the folder is. And you can see I got a million of them because I've done all kinds of different projects with people. If that does not appear, so I'm just going to click done. If you do not see yours, we need to go to site, new site, and we need to rename again your site. So your last name shows, whatever you want to name that. And remember, the local site folder is the root directory, the public HTML, the primary folder for our site. That's what we have to get to when we click on this little folder right here. So everyone should have their site appear over in the files portion of our local connection. So if you haven't got that created, that's what we need to start with, because everything we're going to access tonight is going to appear in CSS, going to appear in the templates. It may be the individual pages. So we have to talk about the relationship of all these files. This is a very standard, simple wireframe structure for a website. The CSS drives the colors in the containers. The HTML files are the pages. The images that appear on each page is in the images folder. And there is 2 templates to drive the layout elements of our design. One is the home page layout, and the other one is all the interior pages, which we call level 1 navigation. All of the level 1 or primary navigation is under the individual movies pages. So that's how this structure is built. So everyone needs to make a site connection so we can take a look at the layout of these things. And I'm just going to open up the index page just so that we can quickly highlight what we did at the end of last week, just so that we can build upon the relationship. Remember that Dreamweaver is an HTML editor. I like to work in split view, meaning that the design is at the top and the code is at the bottom. That's the easiest way for me, because then I can either click on here and it will highlight the code, or I can highlight the code and it'll highlight up here. Some people work just in code. I don't know how they do that, because that's kind of crazy, but developers like to do that. They like to work strictly in code. They don't care what the pictures look like. They're just looking at the words, letters, numbers, and symbols. Know that if you're in design view versus live view is rendering what it thinks is what it would look like live on a browser, meaning live on the server so everyone can see it. Based on your connection speed and connectivity, this thing can be or might not be as dynamic. So when I change something down here, it might take a minute or so. I don't want to say a minute, but like 15 seconds to make an edit up here, because it's trying to render it in live time. It's kind of like editing a video that's being posted out on the web, and you're editing it while you're connecting remotely to that video. Same scenario. Design view is static, means everything's being previewed locally. I like to do live view. I'm willing to be patient with a little bit of the delay and stuff, because I do want to see the cause and effect of things as I edit them. But just remember that everything, and so I'm going to pinch up this just a little bit. Everything that is blue down here are things we can edit, right? That's how we left it last week. We left it last week saying that all this stuff that's actively engaged is stuff that's unique to index.html, and it's the things that we can edit here on this page. Everything else that's grayed out means it exists somewhere else. The containers, the scripting, a lot of this stuff exists somewhere else. We can't edit it until we go to the somewhere else to edit it. So just know that. And we talked about this being the masthead or the top piece of bread, includes the logo, any branding, and what's called the primary navigation. A really good rule of thumb that the primary navigation should be between 5 and 7 links. That's really the tradition. Up to 5, a maximum of 7. So the home page, and then you normally have home, about, product, services, and contact when you're dealing with an active website for a business. About 5 pages. You can go up to about 7, but if you go more than 7 primary levels, primary navigation links, you start to lose people. So what we say is, if you can't get to the content in 2 to 3 clicks, you're never going to look for it. So you have primary navigation, you have secondary or aside navigation, which is this stuff right over here. And then you have the content area. So that's kind of where we were last week. And we talked about how the size of these headers and color and script and everything is controlled outside of this page. The only thing we can truly control in this page, and when we scroll down in our code, you're going to see it, is the images, the size of the containers, the HTML links that are going out, all this stuff we can control. So our homework was to hopefully replace the images of these 6 posters with 6 shows that you like to watch. And we talked about last week how that is replacing the images tag right here with an easy name, right? Don't download a picture that's XYZ4872, Jim went to the store.jpg, make it like Jim.jpg. So it makes it easy. And if you did it for homework, as you typed in this text, it normally pre-fills it for you. So as long as you start typing it in, it will pre-fill it. The only way it will pre-fill it is if you save those images into the images folder first. That way that this thing that knows it's looking in there is looking for something that starts with that letter. So if you type the word M, the letter M, if there's an image in there that starts with M, it's going to start pre-filling it for you because it knows it's in there. If you change these names first and then go get the pictures and put them in the images folder, they will work, but they won't work until the images are in the images folder, and they won't work until all of this connects. So for homework, hopefully you went in and replaced the 6 images with the 6 images of shows that you like. And you'll notice I put a few new ones in there for me. The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Does anyone watch that? I'm kind of a History Channel buff to some extent. And Skinwalker Ranch is in Utah, and it has like very weird things happening on it. And there's been multiple owners of the ranch, and they can't explain why cows are dying suddenly. And it's like a really weird place. It's part of the Northern Mesa in Utah. It's a very interesting show. My kids like The Mandalorian, so I had to put that one in there. I like Star Wars, so it's cool. Ted Lasso, if anybody's seen Ted Lasso, talk about a great show. Even if you don't like soccer, it's really great. It's on Apple TV. I like Monk, which is an older show. I do occasionally watch Ancient Aliens, and my wife is like, "What is wrong with you? Like, you're watching a show about aliens." It's very interesting to me. And Bull, I like Bull. So you'll notice I changed my posters all to Mando, Ted, Monk, Alien, Skinwalker, all .jpg. Very simple names so that I can remember them. They're all in my images folder, and they're all pointed. If you do those 2 steps, it should work. Images in the images folder, make the names easy, make sure there aren't any typos, make sure it's .jpg and not .jpeg, which sometimes when you save from the web, it adds the E to the G. You'll make a very easy connection to the images. And that's where we left it, just replacing the pictures so that we could go from the my first web page, right, in basic code, to start editing something a little more complex. You'll notice that these div containers all have a class of posters, which has its own properties, which we'll see somewhere else. It has preset widths. It has an Ahref, which we learned last week meant a link, right? Ahref is a link to something. You'll notice that the links to the images you replaced have HTML names that have nothing to do with the images you replaced. So we're going to need to deal with that this week, because we need to make sure that the names over here match the names of your posters, which match the names of the links. If any of those things do not match, it will not work. You will get a dead link. It's called a dead link. So we need to make sure that we rename these things, and they all point in the same location. That'll be our step after we take a look at our template environment and some of our CSS code. Are we okay? So that's kind of where we left it last week. Opened up index, took a look at an FTP connection, how it relates in Dreamweaver, talked about split view, code versus images. Lots of people just like to click on the images and figure it out later in the code. I kind of like to navigate the code and highlight that and figure out what happens in the images. It's whatever is your druthers as far as the process goes, but that is what we need to do. Okay, so we are in the index page, and we have the top piece of bread, the content area, the A aside, which is called secondary or side navigation, which is over here. And we have our crumbs area down the bottom, this little black bar right down there. And we noticed last week that the index file does not have a lot of stuff to edit. Right? There's only a few things on this page that we can actually edit, and it's all down here. Everything else is grayed out. The very first place you should always look in web design for basic content of the wireframe is what's called a template environment. And that is how Dreamweaver works. It works in both standard template environment and what we call Bootstrap template environment. And Bootstrap is the same environment as this. It's just responsive pages, which means as it gets bigger or smaller, the navigation panels change based on the size of the screen, which you would probably see it in today's world. If you pull it up on your phone, you get 3 little lines for the navigation. You click on it. That's called an accordion. The accordion menu comes down and the navigation is nested inside of there. That's called responsive. In wireframe, it just shrinks down to the minimum size, and you have to pan it with your finger if you're on a small device. Responsive obviously is the better way to go, but if you don't know the basic wireframe structure of fixed, responsive isn't good for you anyway, because you don't know where the elements are supposed to be. So we teach wireframe fixed first, and then in Web 2, we teach responsive.
Doesn't matter what the media side of it, response versus fixed, it doesn't matter what the device itself is going on.
Yes, it's sniffing for a relationship of pixel density. So it's looking for the measurement. The device controls that. Your responsiveness sets the markers for where that thing happens. So like if you take a big screen like your TV and you pull the browser up and you open up the browser and you start to pinch it, you're actually going to notice that every breaking point of that page, the device is telling you to look for that ratio, and it's editing based on that ratio. So you'll normally have 3 breaking points. So you'll have full screen, you'll have in essence landscape format and portrait format per device. So you can pinch that thing down, it will actually change. So the device does dictate iOS versus Android or whatever that format is, and then it sniffs the ratio and it changes it based on the ratio. But you actually, many sites will actually put at the bottom to override it, and you could actually, if you wanted to, set it no matter what it was to have an accordion menu or have a fixed menu or whatever you wanted. That's not as cool now as it used to be, where you just forced everything to accordion. Because right, most people are pulling it up on some watered down operating system anyway. They're not opening up on a standard screen PC desktop thing. They're pulling it up on a tablet, a phone, an e-machine, something that is a watered down operating system. It used to be cool not long ago just to set everything to a responsive accordion menu. So even if you pulled it up on your TV, the menu would be a drop down. It wouldn't be a tab system where they're lined up for you. So the device does control that, but Dreamweaver sets what we call the markers for where it changes the look of it. So, and Bootstrap's really great for it. All device editors like Dreamweaver have their own version of Bootstrap, but it's really a functional, easy way to create responsive web design. We were actually talking about before the class got started. I can imagine where drag and drop is going to be very near future, where everything is pre-canned on the side here, and you just drag it and drop it over there, and everything formats itself. It's no longer markers, it's floating objects. So
Kind of how Squarespace,
you can't really break it. Yeah.
you ever mess with Squarespace?
Yeah, a little bit.
People do this all. That's
Yeah.
basically what that is now. Squarespace.
Just drag and
it's
drop.
like a
Uh-huh.
predetermined layout. You can only do so many things.
Yeah, I like to teach WordPress as a cloud tool because if it's good enough for the White House, it's good enough for anybody. I mean, White House is built on it, their website. But it's much more, you need to know a little code. And that's why I like to teach it, because you can see the relationship. But yeah, Squarespace, I actually just converted a local business over to like a Wix environment because they had no designer, no admin, the owner did it all. And it's a very similar drag and drop environment where even the application for scheduling appointments for this business was an HTML widget that you just dragged and dropped into it. And it was completely dynamic. It was responsive. It changed its proportions based on the device. And it literally, kind of like the Square Machine application, it sniffed out to the server. It collected all the data. It secured and managed all purchase. And it was literally a drag and drop widget. And that we would have charged $10,000 when I worked at the web company just to code that if we were going to put that in a website. And it was a drag and drop tool that they owned proprietary that just dragged in there. I mean, all the way down to events. I mean, I helped a student one time that worked in a business put an events purchasing system on a private website. And it was a drag and drop purchase for $5 a month. And it managed everything down to the scanning e-ticket to get into the event. I'm telling you, dude, that would have been 3 weeks to 4 weeks of developer time and $10,000 to $15,000 in website development if the company I worked for developed it and it was a drag and drop tool. And you were paying for the security of them already developing it and managing everything. And all you did was scan the thing with your app at the gate. I mean, so we're getting there. But still, if you don't know it, if it breaks, you don't know how to fix it. And that's the part I worry about. Like when cars drive themselves, if you never drove a car, how do you know when something's wrong or when you need to fix something? Or it scares me when we go to processes that are automatically built in, that no one knows the framework for them. Makes me very nervous. I can build things a lot quicker than people that drag and drop because I know the process for it. I know the reason for it. And even though I also can use pre-built things, I know why it should be the way it is and I can communicate it to the client. So yeah, it's getting scary. Next week, you're gonna be like, why did we do this all along? I built a 5-page website in an hour and a half and it rocks. Yeah, probably. But, huh? Yeah. Using other people's stuff. Yeah. At least the bones. That way you can edit, fix it, add it to it.
I don't expect a business guy. I hate to say that.
Uh-huh.
I don't expect, like, if you're a mechanic, so you have, chips mechanics.
Yes, yeah.
What the heck do you want to know about that stuff for? Yeah, you'll pay someone. You just pay Squarespace.
Yeah.
IT guys that don't know anything about it. That's
Yeah. But I gotta tell you, a lot of businesses have gotten away from outsourcing and they want a jack of all trades, or at least a jack of a few trades, right? You may be IT support, but if you can help the intranet or the extranet part of the business, you've just added a skill that not everyone can add. And you're right, it validates dollars, right?
Look at Revature. Look at Revature. They're actually, what they do right there is they had to take a little test right there to see how your knowledge is on Java and HTML coding right there. And then what happens if you pass it on any one of those grounds right there, and they'll actually train you up for like 9 to 12 weeks. And then they send you out to one of the big 500 companies. You basically get attached to them for 2 years. And then they can keep on going right there. But the problem with that one, because I actually almost got picked up by them with support HTML. I don't know why. But, the only reason why I couldn't move. That was the only kicker. Right there. My son graduates next year, so I couldn't move. But that was it. You actually have to move out. But they were going to set you up. They trained me up and then set me out in one of these big ass companies. I would have done that stuff with them.
Internal training, if you have an aptitude for it and have a little bit of understanding for it, they'll just throw you in there, train you and boost
They're
you
still
up.
hiring. They consistently hire like 9 weeks, so you'll see them consistently find that. So if that's your game, if you're anything good at Java or HTML, they're gonna pick you up and they'll send you out.
Yeah.
They'll send you out.
Yep. Yeah, they throw a wrench in the system, don't they? Yeah, they throw a wrench in the system. All right, so we need to go over to our first template environment, just so that we can see the relationship between the wireframe, the template, the HTML page, and then we're going to get into the scripting. So let's open up the movies.dwt, because there's two templates in this environment, which is very common in the web design world. Movies.template or primary template normally controls either just the index page or the index page in all primary navigation. And you'll see this when you go to Amazon, Best Buy, it doesn't matter the process. The primary navigation, the splash page, the home page, and the level 1 buttons, which we saw running along the top, traditionally are in one template environment. When you drill down to level 2, level 3, level 4, off of the A aside or the side navigation or the level 2 navigation, we call it, you will have an individual template specific to that. The reason you do is because the content area proportions change based on the necessity of the content. So primary navigation normally is 3-column, where there's more room for pictures and text. When you drill down to level 2, 3, 4, 5, people already got to what they were looking for. They just want the information. So then you go more into a 1-column environment where it's customer reviews, pictures, text, the basic information. And this is no different. We have the index or the primary navigation template, and then the individual template where you can learn about each of the things in here, which we call level 2 or A aside or secondary navigation. So we're going to double click on the movies template. And it's going to open up this thing. Now, you're going to notice a few things. I'm actually going to scroll down the text first so you can see what is, it looks the same as the index page, right? The title's up there, primary navigation's there, secondary navigation's there. You're going to see the primary frame or wireframe. And you may notice up here, we got a couple of extra things going on. We got that it's tied to the CSS, which in many cases is an individual file. Depending on how complicated the animation process is, the scripting is in the animation side of the page. Traditionally, you have a main CSS file, and then you potentially could have JavaScript that commands fonts and different things like that. You'll know we have a scripting font specifically for the Arizonia font because it's a cloud-based font, which means it's got to point somewhere in order for your computer to render. So we're going to look down here in the HTML first so you can see exactly what we have access to. So I'm just going to scroll down here, and you're going to notice that the name at the top, which is part of that top piece of bread, we have access to. You could see it on the index page, but you couldn't edit it. It was grayed out. Let's change this. It said like Disney Shows 2020 or something on it. Let's change the header, which you'll notice is bold, and it has an ID called header. That's important because these IDs are referenced in our CSS. So we got to know kind of the basic gist of what they are. And so let's change the television. I changed it to Television Shows 2022. So you can change it to streaming shows or whatever the name of the thing is you went out and got the posters for. If they're movies, put My Movies 2022. I don't care what the beginning is, just make sure it says 2022. So I know that we created it this particular class, and you could change it to any name you want. Knowing that when we change it and save it, we're going to see what happens, and it's going to, in effect, populate all of our pages. So I'm going to change the word television because that's a really long word. It looks kind of awkward. So I'm going to change mine to Chip Shows. Chip Shows 2022. It's very close to another word, so maybe I should change that. Let's go. So macro shows. There we go. Macro shows. That's what's over there. Macro shows 2022. Okay. So let's just take a look at what we got going on here. We have uppercase for our primary navigation, home, about, tickets, and contact. And you'll notice the links. The home goes to our home page, which is index.html, right? The about page, very simple concept here. We actually don't have to change any of these titles, but I'd like to make them all lowercase. So let's go into our primary navigation that is currently all uppercase, and you can see it in black text right down here. I want you to change it. So either make it upper and lowercase or make it all lowercase, just so that we can see the cause and effect. So I'm going to go in here and change this to home. Change this to about. Tickets. And while you're typing, you should notice that the size of the containers are adjusting a little bit because it's based on what's called a padding around these boxes. So they have to stay consistently spaced in these little boxes. So as we change the thing, it kind of reset itself. They're also centered. So it kind of readjusts itself based on that. When I first started web design in the late 90s, we made pictures of these things. So each one of these was a JPEG or a GIF of the button, and then they built it that way, which was fine because it wasn't a big file. But remember, pictures take longer to download than text. Everything you can make script-based loads immediately, zeros and ones, right? Immediate. It's like a straw. You're sucking the data through the straw. The picture's big and chunky, like a milkshake, takes a little bit longer. This is like water. It's just going back and forth really easily. So as much shapes, colors, fonts, containers you can make non-picture based, the quicker it loads. So let's edit all that. Now we don't have to change the HTML names because those files are going to be pretty consistent for the pages we're building. Just know that they do relate to what is over here. And they do not have a folder / in it in the name. So remember, if this was in the images folder, it would say images / index.html. The fact that there's no subfolder, it just has its name there. So if we ever move these files into their own folders, these would all be broken. They would not work. So just know if they're in the root directory, there's no subdirectory / in front of the name. Okay. So let's keep going. And you'll notice, and just be aware of the names that are associated with these elements, because it's really important because they also exist in the scripting side of the house. So we had the header, which included our primary navigation, and our secondary navigation is called A or aside. Just remember those names because they're pretty common in a lot of forms of layout, and they also are important because this is a triangle. The HTML is built on the template. The template is driven by the code, and it's like this little triangular relationship. And it becomes really important in cloud-based design because you're allowed to actually manually edit the scripting in even those cloud-based environments. It'll give you access to the code, and you can go in and customize something that's built in a template world to look totally unique to you. So even though you're accessing a thing like Squarespace or, gosh, there's a million tools out there now that people are using, you can go into the advanced settings and it will give you access to even the script that drives the template that you're paying $9.99 a month for. So you could use something that everyone else is using and still make it uniquely yours. Round the corners of the pictures, change the color, adjust the size of the containers. If you know a little bit, you can actually go in and manually edit it. So people will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you used a web tool for this, because I know how to go in and edit it, add my own script and customize it myself. So just know that that's why we're learning this, because there's an enhanced setup. And in most cases, you're going to be working in a company where they use a combination of tools, something in-house combined with something they pay for, whether it's a plugin or it's a template environment or it's a paying system they embed. There'll be some level of both in-house and external content. My first job down here, I worked at a large engineering firm, and we had an intranet and an extranet. The extranet is what the world sees, right? www.blah-blah-blah.com. The intranet was the internal website sitting on our host in our office. We were the corporate office, and it was only for internal use. So you could only access it. It was secure in our browsers, and we would do health insurance information, somebody's birthday, like employee directory, and all that was built in-house. So you had to know this. And the external site was Outhouse. It was built by an agency using a tool, and we just went in and manipulated the elements we needed to. So it's nice to know both. Okay, so let's keep going. So you'll notice over here, we have our secondary navigation, right? And the names are actually right here. So H3, is it bigger or smaller than H1? Smaller, right? 1 to 7, 1 being the biggest, drilling down. So H3 is smaller than that text right there. So this is H3. You can see it right there. The name is shows. And you're going to notice two things. One is here's the list, and then here is HTML pages that associate with those shows? Well, we have a trick here because the A aside has links to pages. And remember, the posters have links to pages. So we need to edit the names in the secondary, the names of the pages in the secondary, but we also have to remember when we go back to the index page that we also have to edit the href links on the posters because there's two ways to get to the individual pages. Secondary navigation or on the index page, the big posters. And that happens in web design all the time. There's more than one place that points to the same thing, right? You got to get the information in 3 clicks. It's normally a picture, it's a link, it's embedded in the description. Like there's lots of places to point you to just one place. That way you can't miss it. You just have to know that it points to the same place and that you edit it in more than one place, because nothing's worse than clicking on one thing and it works. And then going back to the page later, you're like, check this out, look what I found. You click on the other way to do it and it's broken, right? Can't find page doesn't exist, that sort of thing. So we have to do it in a couple of places. So we're going to go in and first we're going to change the names on the side to match the names of the posters that we were putting in there. So if you haven't done the posters yet, just list the 6 things you like there, and you can always go back later and replace the posters. So I have, what do I have? I have, bless you, I have Skinwalker. So I have to do Skinwalker Ranch. There it is. Then next I had, and I'm actually going to click, I have both my tabs open right now. So I'm going to click on index so I can remember, oh, Mandalorian. But remember, I have to click back on this tab over here so I remember what I'm doing. So I need Mandalorian. Hopefully that's spelled right. So I'm Mandalorian, and then and you read left to right, top to bottom. So you should do across the top row, 1, 2, 3, and then across the bottom, starting in the left, 1, 2, 3. We call that the reverse S. So when I teach students in design how to communicate information visually, you start in the upper left-hand corner and you give them the information in a reverse S. So the last thing you tell them is in the lower right-hand corner. It's called a reverse S. So I just got to make sure that I do that here. So we have Ted Lasso. All right. And then second row. Oh, Monk. Monk, Ancient Aliens, and Bull. So Monk. Ancient Aliens. And Bull. Does upper and lowercase matter? Yes, because this is legible, searchable, copyable, editable text, the black text that's appearing over here. So we want to make sure that we're consistent. If it's upper and lowercase, everyone should be upper and lowercase. That's tricky sometimes with students because it's spread across a big portion of the page and they don't remember. The beauty about the template and CSS environment is you truly only have to edit it one location. If I had to build the side navigation on every one of those index pages, it would be a lot harder in order to remember that. But that's what the template is for. Think about the template like the master slide in PowerPoint. You put it in one place and it goes across all of the slides of the presentation. That's what the template does. All right, so we should have all 6 of our names, favorite shows, favorite movies, I don't care what it is. We should have edited the masthead to be a new name, 2022. I don't care whether you put streaming shows, the shows that rock 2022, I don't really care. Now, the next thing we need to do, and I do use a piece of paper and pencil every once in a while to keep my brain in order. We have to change the names of the HTML files in our code and the names of the files. If I change the blue text here to be something simpler to remember, if I change it here, will it change it over here?
No.
No. These are just a preview of the files in the folder. We're going to have to change it here and then rename it over here. So I'll show you how to do that. But first, let's change it. Is the names of the HTML files case sensitive? Are spaces okay? No spaces. And keep it very simple so you can remember it. So I'm not even gonna do Ted Lasso. I'm gonna do Ted.html. Skinwalker Ranch, I'm gonna do Skinwalker. Like, keep the names simple. But we have to change them here. And when we go back to the index page, we have to change them there too. So just make them names that you can remember. Let's change the HTML files in the code to be something that matches the names of the shows that you like. So, and I would recommend lowercase. So I'm just going to do Skinwalker. And don't have a typo. I mean, this is a really good practice in being very type A personality. Because if you hit a period by mistake, a slash, an exclamation point, a question mark, anything in the naming, it has an effect on the ability to link to it. No spaces. Don't mistakenly put a space between the last character and the period, or vice versa. It will affect the name. So I'm going to do Skinwalker. Just making sure there's no space. And then I'm going to do Mando for Mandalorian. And then I'm going to do Ted. I would recommend all lowercase, no spaces. Just make it very easy on yourself. And I say that, and I've been with people that have 40 years of coding experience, and I'll work with them and look at their code, and they'll be using things that I wouldn't even remember that they use as their best practices. I guess if you do it over and over again, it becomes your best practice, but it's really tricky. Now, once we change the names, both the black text that is case sensitive, and you can do upper and lower case and spaces, and the blue text, which is the file name, the href, the embedded link. Now, we have what's called a target. So if we would have done a href equals quotation mark, Skinwalker Ranch period HTML quotation mark space, target equals quotation mark underscore blank quotation mark. When we clicked on each one of these links, they would open in a new window, which is what we were talking about. When it does not list the target in it, in the HTML tag, it means that they're going to open on top of themselves, which is what you see in 99.9% of web design. The only thing you need to know is that if you're linking to content that isn't on your page, which I think last week we talked about, like affiliation links, you want that information to be target equals blank, quotation mark underscore blank, because you don't want them to leave your page. You want a new window to open for them to look at their stuff. But if they close that, your stuff is still there. That's like a huge kind of cardinal rule, slap on the wrist kind of thing. Like, too many designers send you to outside content and it loads right on the page they found the content. Well, how many people are going to click the back button to go back to the original content? Zero. So you've just lost your audience. The minute you lose your audience, you lose revenue, you lose time on the page, you lose branding. Like, the last thing you want for people to do is to leave. So target equals underscore blank is how you open a new window. Okay. All right. So now we have to change the secondary HTML page names to match the new names we put over here. But remember, about, contact, tickets, index, those are level 1 pages. So we don't want to change those names. We just want to change the show names. So you're going to notice the A for Ace Ventura HTML. I'm going to rename that to Skinwalker. So if you go over here and you right click on that file, over here in the files window, you're going to notice rename. Now we can rename one of two ways. We can click on the file, right click on it in our file local connection and do edit rename, or we could minimize Dreamweaver and go into the folder where the files are and rename them like you would rename a file in any process you use, and they would update over here. But I like to do as much in Dreamweaver as I can so we get comfortable. So I'm going to edit Ace Ventura and I'm going to do rename, and you're going to notice it highlights, right? No typos, don't add spaces, don't delete .html, just change the name. And it is case sensitive, so I need to make sure it's Skinwalker. And I'm just going to click away and look what it says. Do you want to update that file by renaming that? Yes, I would like to update it. So I'm going to click update, and now we have Skinwalker. So now I need to find the next file, which is JBob. I'm going to right click on that and do edit, rename. And we rename this Mando. And yes, update. If it ever asks you, do you want to update? Always say yes, because that means there's a relationship between what you're doing and other files. So you're going to quickly recognize that the index page is tied to this template environment. Okay, so we got Mando, and then I got a, well, I already have a monk, so that's good. I don't have to change that. So Talladega, I'm going to rename that to, do we already have Ted? Nope, we don't have Ted yet. So let's make that one Ted. And the package, I need that to be aliens. And tropic is the last one. And I need that one to be bull. So everyone should now have a new name at the top of the page, should have the primary navigation changed to upper and lowercase, should have the shows on the left-hand side going to the new names of your shows, and the links should all point to new HTML files that we renamed in our files directory over here in our local connection, our local FTP connection.
How are you going to save it as a JPEG or whatever HTML site?
Say that one more time.
And why you have to save it image itself as an image and also HTML.
You have to save the image as an image, and you have to make sure the HTML points to the image, because the HTML is just the platform for viewing the image. So if I typed in chip.com/images/whatever ted.jpg, the browser would be completely empty, and it would just be the picture of ted.jpg up in the upper left-hand corner of the browser. So all the HTML is an environment to view the image in, format, placement, that sort of thing. But they exist on their own. So if you do just a hard image search, that's why when you go out on the Google and you type in, I don't know, Mandalorian, you click on the images tab, and it has all those images. And if you click on just view image, it actually takes you to the website's directory and shows you the picture in a white background. It doesn't actually put it on the page. If you do view link and page, then it takes you to the page. So that's why they have to exist separately, but the HTML is just a container to view it. I've hacked many of folders, finding out where the image folder was and what the pictures were, and just search for images in the folder, and you'll find all kinds of images because they're all in that folder. You just have to know how to find them. Designers will code to shut off the right-click command so you can't save anything. But if you know where the folders are, then you just type in the domain name images / the name of the file, which comes up in the Google search, and you can still download the picture. They can't block that. They're blocking the right-clicking of the picture inside the HTML page. So there's always a way around things. People always think, well, I froze it, I locked it, I did this. No, if you know a little bit, you can get in there too. You can print screen. I mean, there's so many ways you can capture something that people try to block. So I don't even know why they try to block it, because you can get to it. If you're really good, you can get to a lot of stuff, but some of that's illegal. All right, is everyone okay? So changing HTML names, not a big deal. Making sure we change it here and we change it over here. Understanding the template is the top piece of bread, the bottom piece of bread, and the secondary navigation in essence that we changed it. All of the commands of the mouse over, the color change, the script replacement, that sort of stuff exists in our scripting folder not in our template. Our template is just formatting the frame itself, what the text is and that sort of thing. So this is actually space holders, this interior content, this best of 19, this is H2, this is H3 stuff. The actual text that appears somewhere else. So that's all we need to do for the main page template. Now, we can close the movies template and save it. And it's going to ask us, do you want to update all of these files that also have these elements? The answer is always yes, because look at everything that is tied to that. Even the individual movie template has elements that were from the movies.dwt template. All it did was we made a duplicate copy of it and replaced certain elements, but some of the elements are connected. So you always want to say yes, because it's going to run this process to update everything in all these files. That's why an HTML editor of any kind is really important. Instead of editing one thing at a time, if you have some kind of file management system, which is what this is, local files over here, editing tool here, you can do it in one place and affect everything. Have I before? And once you do that, you can click close. Have I done it where I downloaded just one file and edited it and then re-upload it? Yeah, because I knew what I could edit on that file without affecting something else. And if somebody had me edit something on their personal site and it exists in their hosting environment and I don't have the files, you can go to ftp://www.chip.com. And if you replace HTTP with FTP and you know their username and password, you can actually have access to all of these files in the web browser using their FTP login. So you can actually just get into a website without an FTP manager. And then you can drag the file from their location onto your desktop, edit it, and then drag it back. And you can replace their file. So if you have their username and password and you type in FTP, www.chip.com, you have access to all their source file. And that's pretty cool because then you don't need this. But you also have to know what you can edit in each element without breaking the other stuff. I've had designers before help someone, they download only certain files, they edit them, they re-upload, and the client calls and like, dude, you crashed my site because you edited things that exist other places, but you only edited one place and it broke all the other stuff. That's because they downloaded only the file that they thought they needed to edit and they broke the other stuff. Are we okay?
No, because I can't edit it. Just send me an email. I can't edit that stuff that's on the sidebar because the area is called gray on my code.
Okay. Are you in the DWT file, the movies.dwt file? So double click on that.
Okay, so I didn't know that existed.
Okay. All right. So that's
Now I
where
can
we're at.
edit it.
That's where we're at. So yeah, I opened the template file on top of the index file and edited that code. So we're in the DWT. So you can go ahead now and you
Yeah,
can,
now I found it.
did you edit over here because you didn't have access to the other stuff? We had the access
Yeah,
to.
because I was using the HTML index
Okay.
file instead of the movie.
Okay. That's okay for here
Okay.
because it appears the same in all locations because this is our local connection. The
Okay. Now I found it.
editing content is specific to DWT. So take a minute and just edit it over here
Yeah.
now. So if you
Thank you.
scroll up
Yeah,
in the
so-
DWT file, and we're just editing this information right here.
that was in the wrong file.
It's okay. And so we'll
Thank you.
just edit it right there, and then everyone will have the same thing. So, because it's important, because when we go to the HTML file, all right, good. So you have all of this up here. These are yours. So remember, we also have to edit it here. So where it says .html, I want you to change this to like wheels.html, make this to like better.html. Change these so they match something you'll remember from here. And when you do that, well, oh, you already have the names over there.
Yeah,
So you just have to replace them here.
Yeah, so I think, so I messed up.
No, it's indexed. You have it there. It's indexed. So let's say you
Okay.
have index, contact, about, tickets. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah. So just make sure you name the stuff over there to match the things that you changed over there. Good. So this local connection will stay the same no matter what we have over here open. So if at any time you get stuck over here, we do have access to here. Just know that this is the files in the root directory, but it's not actually the stuff that's on the page that we're linking to. So this will always be over here, but this will change based on the file we're in. So just know that change the top, change the buttons, and change the names of your shows on the side. Those are the three things that we're changing in the DWT. And when you click the little X to close the DWT, it's going to ask you, do you want to update? Always say update, because everything in here is connected to the CSS, the template, and the index and HTML files, right? So when it says update, say up, because if not, it will update here, or it only update on the page you're on. It won't update on all the pages. So you'll actually get kind of a weird thing going on.
I usually save a lot.
Save a lot, save a lot. When it says update, always update. We can always go back, but always
Right.
update, because you want the cause and effect to be what it's supposed to be, which means these are all related together. I like to edit over here by just right clicking and doing edit rename. Some students are more comfortable going into the actual folder on the desktop and changing the file names there. And if you change them there, they will change here. But just know the file names in the local folders, when you change them, do not change the code. You still have to change the code. And once we have those names changed, we need to go to the index file and make sure that the links associated to the pictures are correct, right? Because we need to do that too. So not only do the links on the A side of the template need to be changed, we also need to make sure the links to these posters also go to the appropriate names over here. So when you get done with movies.dwt, you can close that file because we're done editing that file. But we need to open up index.html and make sure that in the posters class, ID class, that these links also match. So the easiest way to do it is to just look at, the first image and make sure that the name of the file is over there. So I got to scroll back up here and see what I got going on. So my top poster is skinwalker.html. So I got to scroll up to my code. So skinwalker.jpg should point to skinwalker.html. So I've got to change this name to Skinwalker. So now I'm changing it in the second location. We need to make sure, and you'll see that it pre-fills, because there's two ways to get to the content: the links on the side or the posters on the index page. And that is very, very, very common, that it exists in more than one place. All right, so Skinwalker is my first. And then what do I got? Mando. So I got to change this to Mando. And then my next one is Ted. So I got to change this to Ted. But that is something on the final I will ding you for if you have a link to something in more than one location and the link only works in one location. So if we create a little web page for our final project and the links on the left-hand side and an image is linked to it, please make sure that you edit the link. That's why I'm saying use names that you'll easily remember, so that you're like, oh, Ted, I remember Ted is here and it's there. So I have to edit it in both locations. Sometimes I'll get a final project and everything is beautiful, except for all the images are broken links. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you did so well. You changed the navigation, you updated the secondary links, but you put a picture of a cow and it doesn't go to cow.html. It's broken. Or it goes to ted.html because you took some code and copied it over and it didn't work. All right, so let me finish what I got going on here. So I got Ted going to Ted. I have Monk going to Monk. Now I need aliens, I think. Is that what I called it? Aliens? Monk, Monk. And if it's aliens, write aliens, not alien, because it will not work. And bull, and bull. All right, I'm in good shape. And so I can close my DWT file. And I didn't make any additional changes, so it shouldn't ask me for any updates. I'm going to close my index file. It's going to ask me to save. And so I'm good. The reason it didn't ask me to update is because I only changed the content that was on the index page. There was nothing on the index page that tied anywhere else.
It does ask you to update. I'm kind of giving this like, it's like update pages. and Templates is checked, and then library items isn't. I checked library items. Sorry.
Are we okay? We edited the HTML page. The HTML page is tied to 2 pages, movies.dwt, which is the template elements, and our CSS file, which controls scripting, colors, containers, things like that. We haven't gotten into that yet, but that is tied to the index page. The individual movie or shows pages like TED.html is tied to the second DWT template. But you might have noticed that is a duplicate copy of movies.twt. And all I did was change the containers in the content area. That's why when you edit the movies.dwt file and you change that top piece of bread and bottom piece of bread, it actually updates the individual movies template also. Because I built the movies template, I made a duplicate copy of the movies template, and I only changed the content area. That's why, and that's a really good best practice, because the logo, the primary navigation, the ASI, and the crumbs are going to be the same for the most part on both DWTs. So why recreate it? Just make a duplicate copy of it and make some editing to it. So that's all that is. Anytime it says update, update the page, update the page, update the page. So now, if you ever needed to, you worked at a business and they asked you to look at something, you should at least be comfortable a little bit now with subdirectories and the primary directory. And whenever you're going out to a hosting environment, so let's say you're working for a company and you're in the IT department, they're like, hey, we need to update Joe's email on the contact us page, and can you help us out? And you're like, oh yeah, well, how do you access the files? And they're like, oh, we use this HTML or this FTP file manager, and it's called Joe Bob's file editor. And you're like, okay, open up Joe Bob. Joe Bob will have a connection to the files that exist on the server, which we call live or remote connection. And you would access those just the way we're doing in Dreamweaver. So if the email was on a contact.html files, you know it's unique to that page. So if you double click on contact.html, you'll see Joe Bob's email. If you look in the code side of Joe Bob FTP client, it'll have his name and text and an href link to it. And it'll actually be an href mail to link. So mail to and his name, and you just edit it there. If you want to edit the text itself, it's black. If you want to edit the link, so if it had a command like mail to, so like when you click on the email address on the website, it goes to Outlook and opens it up as an email. That's called a mail to. You would edit the link in the mail to so that the email matched the black text to the blue text. That's it. So just know that this is just a platform for accessing both local and remote files, local and remote, and that it's just an editor. It's just building the relationship that exists dynamically in all these folders. It's just trying to help you a little bit. So these things are linked to that thing is linked to this thing, and it's like a circle. It just happens to be a triangle of elements. Okay.
So it's easy for editing, but if you were to make a new file, would you want to do it in the actual directory and then go edit, or could you just make it?
You can make it right here, just duplicate. Just know that when you duplicate a file, it duplicates the relationship between those 3 things,
What about
which
if you just, like,
which is
make a
good.
new file?
Say that again.
There's an option on Dreamweaver just like a new file.
Mhm.
Will it also make that?
Nope.
Will it just
It's a
make-
new HTML file.
Or will it make it on here, like, so if I'm just gonna say.
Yeah.
C folder, B folder, movies. I made the new file here. Do not add new image item on my actual directory.
It will, but it won't build the relationship of the wireframe elements the way a duplicate will. Because when you duplicate it, it's also duplicating the relationship to all the files. When you do new, it's putting it in the appropriate directory, but it's not building the standard relationship that you built for everything else. You would be then again building a relationship like the book does, add a CSS file. You see what I'm saying?
I use-
So duplicate really in most cases is the best practice, because you more than likely want to start with the dynamics or the crumbs, the primary navigation. There is a reason to do new though. Let's say you work for a company and they want to send out an electronic announcement, some huge yearly event. Maybe it's the 50th anniversary of your company. They want it to look differently than the primary and the secondary navigation. If you create new, you can create new and name it 50th.html and build a new image text, still HTML, still in that environment, still existing in the directory. But when you go to chip.com/50th.html, it opens up a white page with a new formatting that matches the event. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So new is good if you don't want any relationship to the elements. But even nowadays, most people want to put the 50th events in the container of the site, just update the content area to be 50th anniversary. So, but MailChimp made a business out of it, right? That's all MailChimp is. It's a file new in a directory of templates, and you're adjusting your information. It's sending it out in a format you can email out so people can preview it all. And it's in essence a file new in their directory of stuff that already exists. And they're pretty smart too, because they pre-populate elements. So it's kind of file new, but they have their own tag information at the bottom, the instant contact and all those things at the bottom. And you're just adjusting the HTML and the content area to look new. But I use that a lot. That people love to send out that standardized constant contact MailChimp type stuff. You're just accessing this directory. Their template in essence is the footer, and you're able to copy it. You can actually design it here and scrape all of your text, HTML, go into constant contact, do file new and constant contact, and paste your code from here into constant contact, and it will format it like it was in Dreamweaver inside of their template. And that's how I do it. Yeah, inside their container. The only catch there is you need to make sure that the images have been uploaded to whatever the hosting site is that you're using for your website. But you can build a design here, copy the HTML, paste it into their format, and it will format it exactly like yours. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Most people don't know how to do that, so they just build it inside Constant Contact or MailChimp, and they use the tools they have. But you can build your own custom. All right, is everyone okay? So we have index edited, we have the DWT file edited. Now we need to go into our CSS and take a look at what this stuff looks like. So our CSS file is right here, right? Our movies, style, sheet.css, it's right here. If we open up our index.html file, you'll actually see that there is a relationship between the code and the HTML. So you see this little tab up here? This little tab right here is saying, hey, there's some code associated with this page. So when I'm on the .html, it's HTML down here. When I'm on the styles, this changes down here. So do you see how all of that changed? The code changed. We're actually looking at the CSS nested in the HTML. So if we go from source code to CSS, you're going to notice that that is different. It's the same as if I closed the index and I just opened up the CSS, right? This is the same thing. The only difference is you don't see the design at the top because you just see code here, right? So it's the exact same stuff. The body background is this color. Like it's all the same stuff. It's just now, when you work with a developer, if you're working in a little more complicated environment, they only open this up because they know the names. They know this is the href link color, that this is the link color when you visit the link. This is the link color when you hover over the link. This is the link color that's active. We call that states of navigation. There's 4 states of navigation. So it's up, over, down, over, while down is what the traditional names are. But it's link, visited, hover, and active. Those are the color changes as you interact with a link. What does the A stand for? Do you remember any of the container names? Was there an A blank for one of the containers on the HTML page? The A aside, A href. So you have A aside over here. You have A href over here. Watch when I scroll down. So there's A. And A aside. A determines the scripting for the A href action for A aside. So let's go to CSS. Now let's close the CSS and let's actually open it in the index file, because I think it's easier for most to see the relationship between the CSS when you see it in the design. If you're a developer, you don't even open the index file in Tableau. You just go to the CSS and you know what all the information is. It's a little easier over here to see it because you can see the design up here. So here is so watch when I mouse over and we start looking at the colors that exist in the design. These are all the scripting colors that exist in our template. So as I mouse over these colors, we can actually edit the colors. Do you remember what the number sign code was, the term for it? What is that? What's the name for that? What kind of color is this?
Oh, RGB.
Yes, but what's the technical name? The first three numbers are R, the second three numbers are G, the third three numbers or letters are P. Starts with an H. Hexadecimal, very good. And a hex number. These are the hex numbers. If you know anything about photo editing programs, you can actually sample colors out of photo and they will give you the hexadecimal color that is associated with it. So when I create a web design, if the company has a logo, I'll open their logo up in a photo program and you'll have a little eyedropper and you can eyedropper the color in the logo and it will give you the hex number. First two R, second number 2G, third 2B, and there's letters, numbers, and symbols that associate with it. So FFFF is white, 0000 is black, and every number inside of there. So just for the sake of the process, we're going to go in and just change all the colors, just so that you can kind of get an idea for the process. So we'll take the body and we're going to change this from black. So I'm going to just start deleting the characters and I'm going to type in an F. So I'm just going to click my cursor and delete all of them. And then the very first character, I'm just going to put an F. The reason I put an F is because it's going to give me the entire RGB spectrum of colors. And you're going to notice as we click our eyedropper, that thing is going to change down there, the hexadecimal number. So we can literally pick any color we want. So we're going to change absolutely every hexadecimal number color in our CSS, just so that you can see what happens to the DWT, which is tied to this, and the index.html, and any other pages that are associated to CSS. And is there any other CSS files in there? So we're doing a complete overhaul. If we change it here, it's across the board changing anything that is scripted. So I'm just going to change all of the colors. So we're going to slowly work our way down the process here. And let's just pick colors. If it was me, I would stay warm or stay cold with the colors I'm picking. So warm is down here and cold is up here. So traditionally, the best colors are when you stay in one range or the other. But as you slide up and down, you're going to see you can adjust the level of black. You can adjust what's called the tint of the color, which is the second slider, and you can change the color range. So we're in baseball mode right now. So I think I'm going to go with some Oriole colors, because that's my team, because I'm from Baltimore. So I'm going to go with a dark brown here, which is number sign 5C3111. Now, hexadecimal color ranges are actually preset on the web. You can actually go out and search best colors for color mode, and they'll give you all the hexadecimal colors for an entire website. And you can actually just swap out the colors that exist in this particular environment. So, all right, so let's just go in and change all of our colors here. So we got body background. I like to just delete all the numbers and then start with an F, and it gives me the range. And I just pick whatever I want. So I'm going to do my body background color, and I'm going to adjust and make that. Maybe I'll go with a slightly lighter color. Now, you should have noticed, or maybe you did notice, that the body background over here is actually the browser color. So you can actually kind of see it over here on the side when I change it. The color above that is the color that exists behind this wireframe that we built. So you would only see it when the page loaded on the browser. And in this case, we're viewing it locally, so you would never see it. Because when you load it out for the world to see, if their connection's really slow, you get a color box before everything starts to load in it. That color box is what's behind all this stuff. So I'm going to change that color. Then I'm going to go into my link colors. Right now it is a red, which you'll notice there on mouse over. I'm going to go ahead and change this. I think I'm going to change this to black. And then visited color. Remember, these are just link properties. It gets kind of rainbow-ish at times. I normally only do 2 colors differently. I do the link color and the visited color differently. And I make the hover color the same as the visited color. So when you mouse over it, it changes to a color. And when you click on it, it stays that color. But lots of people like the Punky Brewster effect, where everything is a different color. I know that makes me old, but does anyone even know who Punky Brewster is? Pippi Longstocking, where her stockings were all different color. All right, so let's change this. So we're going to keep going here. So visited, I'm going to change to white. So I know some of the codes, but you can change them however you want. I'm going to stay in like some of the orange ranges and stuff. So an active link right now is this kind of funky blue color. Let's make that black again.
No, it won't update the color until you save it. Because right now we're changing colors, but it's not.
So
showing
what
you.
we're changing is dynamic,
Right.
and we won't see it till we save it, go into the page and interact dynamically. Yes, you get fooled by the fact that this is live view, but no, we're changing properties in the linking area to be dynamic. So the things you don't really see is because we haven't interacted with the page dynamically.
Right.
It's
Like,
just the
instead of-
static.
Instead of the text changing when you.
Yeah, the only thing
the
you
color
can
doesn't change
see
until you save it.
is the background. So this color right on the edge here, you should see, because that's a static adjustment.
Mhm.
So there isn't an interactive element built into it.
Okay.
And once you get below those basic hover colors, the link colors, you get to the container. Now, 1024 pixels is the full container, the full box, the total wireframe. And that wireframe is broken up into smaller pieces, the TD containers. So just know that this first ID container means the whole box, the whole wireframe. So it's just telling you the whole box is 1024 pixels wide. It's telling you the whole box has a 0 pixel top margin. The top margin is the top of the web page as it touches the top of the browser when you type in the URL. Some websites you go to, the top margin is a small bit of pixels, like 5 or 10 pixels. So the page is actually just slightly down from the top of the browser. So if we added a number to that, the red stripe at the top, not the beer, this thing right here, See, there's a little bit of browser space there in preview mode. That's a margin adjustment. And you'll notice margin right, margin left, no pixels. So we're going to keep all that stuff the same. We'll scroll to the header and you'll notice the header. We know the header, right? So if I mouse over here, that is the header because we remember it from the DWT that the header had this name that we edited, but we could only edit the name in the DWT. We couldn't edit the color because the color is CSS. That's the code running that container, just the same as your book with the yellow that goes across the navigation of the header for the primary navigation. It was in the header CSS. So you're going to notice that is red. So I need to make an adjustment. So let's adjust this. Now, the width is the full container, 1024. The height means that's 100 pixels tall. As a rule of thumb, the header is typically between 100 and 125 pixels tall. That's kind of the analytic side of how big your branding should be at the top of the page. So I'm going to change that to like a dark brown or something like that. So I'm going to go in here and get rid of this. And I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to make it some kind of dark brown. So now you can see it change, right? So now we're just getting to the class IDs and what it means in CSS to be these particular containers. So we're just locating containers now. Anytime you see a number, it's pixels. And these are just little buffers of where this thing is. It's floating to the left, which means it starts on the left of the browser. If we change that to center, it would be in the center of the browser. But just know every container would have to be centered because we changed this one to centered. So it's a big box and we're just trying to box everything inside of it. So we'll just change color and I'm just going to give you the properties of what this stuff is. No margin, the text is white, it is Arizonia font, it's the normal version of Arizonia, it is 400 pixels in weight, it has an 80 pixel height, it is text align centered, which means it's centered inside the 1024 by 100 pixel high container. It has an underline. It has a text shadow of an offset of 10 pixels. The shadow is this shade of gray. And it has this text transform, which means it makes it upper lowercase. Now, I'm going to change that to black because I really think a shadow would be better in black instead of in gray. So I'm going to change this and we're just going to work our way down the CSS so that you can see. So I just changed it to black. I changed the offset to 5 instead of 10 pixels. And look how much cleaner that is. It makes the shadow really close to the letters. All I was doing was an X and Y coordinate offset. The 0 is X and the 5 pixels is Y. So that's over and down. That's it. So it's 0 over 5 down. So just so you can see the coordinates. The beauty about an HTML editor is that it tries to give you the answer. So when you start deleting stuff, it starts to try to figure out what you want to type in there. It's giving you, in essence, the code snippets or the cheat codes for this. We're just editing it manually so you can feel comfortable with what we're doing as it relates to this particular file. So let's scroll down a little bit further. And you'll notice we're now in the navigation area. What area of the page is navigation? That's okay.
The home about.
Yeah, primary navigation. Level 1 navigation is the div ID, number sign, which is an anchor mark, and AV. So these relationships are just tying to div ID containers that exist in the pages. So these names you should notice as they relate to the DWT and the index file. That's all it is. Well, we just know that the container properties, the colors, the fonts, the size, they're controlled in the scripts that point to the other files. So if we want to make color adjustments, container adjustments, how the top piece of bread, the bottom piece of bread, and the content changes, we're in the CSS. When we're dealing with elements that appear on every page that are text oriented, we're in the template environment. When we're dealing with information that only exists on one page, we're in the HTML files. Not hard, just understanding the relationship we just learn about, because there is that triangular relation. So I'm going to go in and change my nav color. I'm going to start changing everything. So you, as we work our way down the page, should customize yours so that it looks different than mine. So that when we see this thing, you upload this thing to me, it'll have its own personality, your own name, your upper and lower case. So let's see what we got here. We got light blue. I think I'm going to change this to, I'm going with the browns and the oranges and stuff. But you should also see that certain elements are better lighter and certain elements are better darker. So if we make the nav black and the containers that hold the buttons are black, the buttons are going to disappear. Now that might be the look you're going for. If we remove the border from the buttons and we made the nav background black and we made the primary buttons black, it would just look like the words were floating in a black stripe. And sometimes you see that on the web page. There's no container around it. So that maybe would be a nice look. So we'll do that. Now you should be noticing both stripes, header and nav, are 1024 wide. This one's 100, this one's 50. Just so that you can start to see the relationship of width and height. The width is traditionally exactly the same, and the height goes from 100 to 50, or 125 to 50. That's normally as big as you go. If you start going 150, it starts to make the header so big that you have to scroll to get to the content. All right, so let's just keep working our way down here. So the height is 50. We have the margin. You'll notice it's aligned centered. Now that I mouse over the A aside, we know that's secondary navigation, right? It's right over here. The beauty about looking at the CSS while the index page is open is that you really get to draw the relationship between where the code is embedded in the page. As me mousing over this now, you can see it's right over there. But you should start in your brain cataloging the names of what we're searching for, what we're looking at, and where it relates in the page. So we're just making the template using CSS a little bit prettier. All right, so A aside, let's go in here. I think I'm going to make the A aside black. So there it is. It's left. It's 568 pixels tall. So does anyone remember, this would be a really good memory if you did, does anyone remember what the standard height of a fixed wireframe if it's 1024 wide? It's a pretty standard dimension. Actually, when you pull up Dreamweaver, I believe it's the preset for HTML. 1024 is 768 tall. So 1024 by 768, that's kind of a 16 by 9 proportion. So you should recognize now the A aside is not as tall as the standard wireframe, which means there's space under the A aside from the box. So 768, 568, there's about 200 pixels. Traditionally, that is standard because ads are put under the A aside on the left-hand side to get people to buy things that they're selling on the site. So sometimes you'll see the A aside and there'll be 250 pixels under secondary navigation, and it'll be an ad. And that ad will be in a revenue generator, an affiliation link where you can click on things. It's just ad space. All right, so there's our colors. All right, so now you'll notice in the page, this is the content area right here, which I've used the term over and over again. So you'll notice the width of that is 864. There's no margin. You can actually see it in my box here that it's flushed right against the edge of there. It has a background color of dark gray. It has a text align. It has a lighter shade of gray. You can see the properties to it. I'm actually going to keep mine dark gray because a lot of the stuff I have in there, I have light text on dark gray. You'll see that the A aside, which is shows H3, 25 pixels tall, center aligned, which is what that is. My color for my font is white in my A aside, which you can see when I mouse over my shows, that's white. You'll notice the hover is red, which means when I move my mouse over Skinwalker Ranch, the white text goes to red. So that's all that is the properties for my secondary navigation. You'll notice that the mouse over goes to a script, which is called Arizonia. So that's why that changes when you mouse over your A aside. So if you want the mouse over to be a different color, I'm going to go ahead and change that just so you can see the cause and effect of it. Let's go with a yellow, kind of a mustardy yellow. So now you'll notice my mouse over goes from red to mustard yellow. And I'm just talking through it while you're editing. You're scrolling down and you're editing. I'm just talking through the CSS. You'll notice that the H1 is this light gray. You'll notice it has a 40 pixel padding, which just means there's 40 pixels added to the left of the H1 that gives it this indent. It's Arizonia. It's aligned left, but it has a 40 pixel indent. It is light gray. So if I wanted to change it to white, FF, FF, FF. My footer, which is down the bottom here, has a black stripe that is 40 pixels tall by 1024 pixels wide. So the header and the footer are both 1024, top piece of bread, bottom piece of bread. The A aside in the content area, those two numbers add up to 1024 so that they're basically the same width. So that's why I explained it top piece of bread and bottom piece of bread and the PB and J in the middle. So the content area, the footer is black. So if I wanted to change that color, maybe I want to make it brown, some shade of brown. So now you can see it down there, changes to brown. My content H2, which is this thing right here, has a deep red color. It is aligned left with the same 40 pixel padding. So it has the same indent in the CSS. It has no shadow, so 0, 0. It's red. Red can be kind of obnoxious, so let's change that. I'm going to make it like a gold. So now it's gold. The beauty about seeing it in the index page is you get a really good cause and effect. As you change it, you can see it in the design. When we only open up the CSS file and edit it, you don't see it until you open up a page that is tied to the CSS. So it's easiest if you open the nested pages in the actual design. Just know that we're not changing the text. We are only changing the formatting. Now, when we get down to the navigation tab, know it's these things up here. The navigation is the little containers at the top. So when we get to navigation, hashtag navigation, it's these containers. So if we wanted to get rid of the border, see thin solid border with a height of 3, we can adjust that. If I go in here and remove the FFFF, and I just keep the number sign, there's no border around those buttons. If I add a color, the color becomes whatever, the border becomes whatever color that is. So this is where we're just starting to learn the names associated with the separate containers, and they are standard. There is a protocol. So we're just adjusting these the same as you would have adjusted them in your book. All right, so we have a padding. So let's see here. I'm just randomly picking numbers. So I just typed in FF00FF and it's pink. My background color is black. So what do I want to make this? Let's do, oh, look what happens if I remove it. It just has a border around it. It's the nav color controlling it. So let's see here. Here we go. And notice the navigation hover. That's all that is. So if we want to change that color, watch what happens if I make it FFFF. Right? Nothing. The hover color is the same as the static color. Well, sometimes that's nice. Like you don't need to change every color. So if they match or I remove the color from the hex number, it'll just be static like this. So it only changes to a hand. When it changes to the hand, it means it has a link property. That's how you recognize it in Web World. All right. So let's scroll down. Poster background color is red. Now, this is set to a gradient, which means it has a top and bottom color, and it has like a gradient shift to it where it transitions colors, and it has a margin. And here is the gradient right here. We're going to leave the gradient the same because those are tricky RGB settings in order to transition from this color to the linear version of that color. So we can leave those the same. Those are an RGB setting for gradient shifts. And you're going to notice that the image poster is right here. It's 280 by 200. And each one of these is a column that it floats in, which is what these are right here. So it has a margin, it has a container color, which means it's sitting inside something, and that has a gradient to it. So each one of these has a pad float. Now, movie vid is actually the CSS for the individual movie pages because there's a video embedded inside the individual movie pages. So the movie vid, table, text, that sort of thing is nested in there. And they have gradients too. So once we've edited all that color, I'm going to go back to the source code for the index.html page. And you will notice that when I get out of the CSS and I go back to the source code, I can edit H1 and H2 because that's part of the index page, not part of the CSS. The CSS controls the font, the size, and the color. The individual page, HTML page, controls the actual text. CSS is behaviors, properties, and containers. Individual HTML pages is the editable font, the actual what words you're writing on the page. Dreamweaver template is the wireframe. CSS is the div IDs, which are these containers that everything is in, and the colors and the properties of those containers. That's connected to all of the HTML pages, but the information that's unique to the page exists on the HTML pages. Does that make sense? Colors, behaviors, IDs, containers, CSS. The elements of the wireframe, DWT, because that's the top piece of bread, bottom piece of bread, the overall thing. The individual HTML pages is just the text, the images, the things that are unique to that page. So if I went out on a server and I downloaded just the index.html page to my computer, so I don't have all the other stuff, I just downloaded, or someone gave me, here, Chip, here's the index.html page. Could you change the text and the pictures on that page for me and then upload it back to the server? Would I see any of these colors, behaviors, things if it was on my local computer?
Yes.
So I would see them empty because I would know they were there, but I wouldn't have the CSS file locally connected to that thing. So it would know what it was, but it wouldn't show the behavior of it. So like when you give me an HTML file and you don't give me the CSS, I see all your stuff. I see the basic formatting of it. It's just stacked for me with no color. It's completely white because I don't have the behavioral assets attached to it. Some designers will download just the HTML file and edit the text because they know they can only edit what's in blue and black and re-upload it up, knowing it would be pretty like this. But you don't see the pretty unless you have the triangular relationship of the files. So I could download just the CSS and change all the nav colors and re-upload it, and it would change everything on the site because it's all tied to the CSS. I don't have to have all the files to edit if I know what I'm looking for, but I won't get the experience unless I have the entire relationship. So I can edit, I just can't see it per se because I don't have the behavioral assets. And remember that it's chip.com/css/movies_style_sheets.css. But that's not the link relationship in here. So if it's out on the cloud and I'm viewing a file locally, the link to the file is not the web address /subdirectory/file. It's only subdirectory/file. So it won't render the behavioral components. It will stack it for me. It won't break it. You can make the edits and re-upload it and it will be beautiful. Just know that you won't see it. Without having the entire package of the relationship of all the stuff, you won't see it. So we can go in here now and change this. So on the index page, we should now, because we changed the colors, we should change this statement and the year to 2022. So your index page should have that white text and that gold text or whatever you change the color to. On your index page, you should make it unique. So your index page should now be fully edited, which means this is changed, the stripe colors are changed, the buttons are changed to upper and lowercase or all lowercase. The name text right here can now be changed. Your secondary or A aside text should all be changed. Your year here should be changed, and all of your posters should be changed. We should be done. Our CSS, our movies.dwt, and our index page. So we in essence have completed out of book project 1 in learning module 1, because that was the process for editing, changing that stuff to match the new, the posters and all that stuff, which now gives us 45 minutes to edit some pages. Your index page should be done. Your CSS code, we manipulated, so you should have some different colors and stuff. Your movie posters should be changed, and we should have renamed our HTML pages. So our site works right now. If we clicked on the links on the side, or we clicked on the posters, they would open these pages. The only trick is these pages don't have the information of the shows you like. It has the information of the shows I liked in 2021 when I made this page, or whatever the last time was I taught the class. So now we're on to actually just seeing what happens when we start editing the individual pages. Does it make sense what we've done so far? We edited the template, which is the wireframe. We edited the CSS, which is the behavioral stuff, the colors, the containers, the size of the containers, the colors in the background of the containers. We edited one HTML page, which is called the home page. You were able to replace pictures. You put the pictures in the images folder. We renamed the links to match the new pages. We, in essence, have built a successful triangular or interactive behavioral page tied to the things you like based on the things I had that I liked. So now we just need to see what that stuff looks like when we start to go to interior pages. Yeah, are we okay? Are we okay? So everyone should have color changes, a little bit of name and text changes, all that basic stuff. Everything should be newly yours for the most part. Yeah, you could have kept some of the colors, I guess, if you wanted, but this should be changed. You should have your own shows over there. You should have your own poster over there, so we know it's yours. I always have someone that leaves one of mine because maybe they do like Monk. I don't think I've ever had a student actually leave Monk. Although it is a great show if you've never watched it. He's like uber OCD,
Yeah.
and he helps the police, and he does this thing with his hands because he's hypersensitive to all the details. So he solves crimes just on basically what he recognizes. He just is super sensitive to things. So he notices the watch. I mean, he just notices that. It's a really cool show. It ran for like 8 seasons. That guy's making a killing. I think that was his only job. All right, so we should be done index.html. So we're actually going to close index.html. And it should say, do you want to save it? Yes. Do you want to save the changes to CSS? Yes, because all of the behavioral stuff we changed that's connected to everything needs to be saved. So now, we edited the template, we edited the index page, we recoded everything so it's unique to our page. So if you ever wanted to use this and change the colors, change the text, change the pictures, and make something totally new, you know that relationship now for how to change the nav, how to change the ASI, how to change the header, how to change the content area, the footer. Like those are all IDs that we've recognized based on the pages we've edited. So let's just take a look at a couple of pages. So we can just edit a few things, very simple things. So let's just go to the About page first. So let's double click on the About page. And so you're going to see that the About page is also tied to the movies underscore style underscore. So you're going to see all the same movie.dwt elements. The shows are still the same over there. And we call that level 1 navigation. Like all of level 1 navigation is going to look like this. Primary navigation at the top, the logo that we changed, or the text that we changed, our list down the side. All this is a little bio information about what this thing is. So we're going to go in and customize it. So we're going to keep it as the about page, because this is just like the about our website. Like, why did we make this website? But I want you to go in, and what information do we need to change? Well, about.html we don't want to change, because that's the link at the top of the page, and that's pointing over here, and this thing over here is this. So we don't have to change the link, but we have to change some of the information that's in here that's just unique to our page. So let's change about us to all uppercase. So I'm going to go into the about us, and I'm going to change it to all uppercase. So you can see it there. And you're going to see that it's H1. Do you see the color anywhere?
No.
No, that's over there, right? That's in the behavioral part of the content area of the CSS. I'm only editing the text right now. I'm not editing the behaviors. Our one-stop shop for classic movies. I'm just going to put, this is the greatest list, or this is my list of 2022 greatest shows or something. We're just going to go into the about page, and we're going to customize it to your particular thing. So whatever your particular thing is. So I'm going to highlight this. Well, we remember H1 and H2 from our CSS. We edited that in the CSS. So just remember the IDs, remember the tags that we use, because that's how we relate. So this is my list of favorite shows of 2022. It's case sensitive. You can use punctuation. This is H2, which I already changed the gold. Remember, I changed this H1 to a fancy color. And remember, I could only edit the color. I couldn't edit the text, which is the space holder. This is my H2. This is my subjective list. I just had that as a space holder. So we changed the color in CSS, but I have to change the text. So if there is an H2 on another HTML page, will it now say, this is my favorite list of 2022? No, right? No. That text is unique to the about page. The color of it, the size of it, the typography of it is tied to the code, the CSS, the script. The actual, what it says is unique content to this particular page. So it'll be gold on other pages if I use H2, but it won't say that on the other pages. Unless I made a copy of this and then it would start like this and I would have to edit it. But if I made a duplicate of this page and named it about2.html, it would start out saying the same thing until I edited it. All right, good. So I'm going to scroll a little further down. And now that you see how to reference or recognize elements, you're going to notice that column 1, which is also column 1 in the poster column of index.html. The only difference is this column has an image and different text. It's still labeled as column 1. So I'm going to go in here and just add some new sentences, just so you can see the cause and effect of it. Because in essence, we're building our second page, index.html, and now about.html. So I'm going to highlight this and just do in today's day and age of streaming services, there is still some good TV. Although paying a monthly fee to watch just one show is a bit of a joke. Period. And now you'll notice, what does P stand for? Paragraph break. So you're actually going to notice column 1 has a top paragraph and a P, which is this paragraph, and that paragraph has an image in it. Does anyone know what the alt tag is? Which is what this is. Alt equals, and then some quotation marks, and it's empty right now, but that image has an alt tag. Does anyone know what an alt tag is? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the name associated to the image. Why is an alt tag important?
To show differentiation, I guess. I mean, anything, another way of getting what that's the job for.
Yes,
Cool.
in essence, yes. It's another attribute associated with the picture, which can be tied to an analytics, to a search mechanism. So if you tag your pictures appropriately, it gives you another opportunity in the world of searchability to know that that's a poster about something and the alt tag says what it is. It's kind of just cataloging the images. So when you type in something like cows and you hit search in Google, it's looking for cows.jpg, it's looking for cows that have an alt tag that says cows in it. It's how the analytics of it, the searchability of it happens. So I'm just going to replace a couple of these things. So you're going to notice that right now it's comedy.jpg. Now, for the sake of the process, I think I'm just going to replace it with one of the posters that I put on the homepage, just so I can replace the picture. So you're going to notice this says comedy. Well, watch when I put a B. ULL. It replaced it with full. And that poster is not that small. Remember that the settings are in the source of the image. So if I was really good, I would go out and find a different poster, maybe of me, and I would put it in there because it's about me. This is the About Us page. Or I could put a Netflix logo, or if there was a particular place that a lot of your pictures or movies that you loved were in, you could replace this with whatever image you put in your images folder. Remember, it has to go in the images folder, but we could edit this and make it whatever. So you'll just notice that it's still pointing to About, and the image source is there.
If I wanted to move that image slightly to the left, how would I do that?
So that relationship is built in the div properties, the CSS properties of column number 1. So you know how column number 1 controlled our posters and how those things were aligned? That CSS behavior of that image is associated with the behaviors of column number 1. So we would have to go in and adjust the behaviors of column number 1. What I traditionally will do is I'll put a line break in between paragraph number 1 and paragraph number 2, and it gives me a floating image between the two paragraphs so that it's a different relationship than the column number 1 on the index page. Remember, the behaviors of the columns or the alignments of the columns are set inside of. So this image is nested inside column number 1. And remember, column number 1 had a center alignment behavior, and that's what's causing this thing to happen, because it's forcing everything based on the column over to the space available based on the column. But I do prefer to have column properties, like if I'm using the same column properties, I do like to have them set in one place, not unique to the page, so that it's consistent by nature. But if I put another paragraph break in here, I could put a paragraph, the image, a paragraph, and that's kind of what you see in the web versus being unique to that page. And that's why the gradients are the same. I just set the column properties to be the same in the CSS. So if I would change the column properties to left align, then you would see things like the text and the images shift over, and then the images would have a padding, margin padding, which is what the properties were in CSS. We could add 5 pixels, 10 pixels, 15 pixels, and you get what's called a text wrap, which means there's space between the image and the text that gives it that extra buffer. So in this case, this is all set to the CSS column 1 properties. All right, so let me just change a little bit here. So first thing I'll do is I'll just take out, let's see here. So let's go in here, and I'm just going to remove some of this. And so now see what happens when I delete that text from that particular area? Now the image is floating centered. This is all just because I duplicated the columns for the interior page that's in the CSS. So let's do that. And I'm gonna make it, actually, I'm just gonna leave it deleted because I kind of like having just that top information. So then I got to go into the next column. And let's edit this. I hope you enjoy some of the shows that I think are really good ones. I would give them five mobile icons for my rating scale. I was trying to think of something funny, but I didn't really come up with anything funny. Because you could do microphones for music. I was going to do antennae, but that's a tough word. And for Chappelle, I'm just going to change the image just for the sake of the process to Mando. Just so that you can see how it works. I'm actually going to delete the second paragraph just so that you can see that the paragraphs are center aligned. And when there isn't any text, it just bumps it. There is a pixel padding to the left-hand side of this column that's in the CSS. And that is it for the About page. So there isn't that much to edit. We're editing the H1, the H3, or the H2, the two little mini paragraphs in column 1, and the 2 posters. I just want you to switch the posters out so that I see that you're able to edit another page of code. So now we've done the DWT file, the CSS file, the index file, and the About file. So we're on our way now. Now for the Out of Book Learning Module 2, we have to do 2 of the individual movie pages. So that's what we're going to do next. So we edited the index file, we made it custom. We edited the Dreamweaver template, made that all custom. We now have edited the About page just so that you can see what you're looking for, what content is editable, like what we can change. In an ideal world, there would be a picture of us on the About Us or About Me page, and there would be a picture of, I don't know, the streaming service or the channels that your shows are typically on. But also notice that the images are linked. These 2 posters are linked to the About Us page, and we are on the About page. So that means that these links don't go anywhere. They're just clicking to stay on this page. If we wanted to, we could point them to the site of the pictures we put there. So we could change the link to http://www.nbc.com/bull, whatever the URL is for that. And that picture would link to the page of the TV show. That link can be an internal link, which means it goes to an internal page, which is what we're doing, about.html, which you can see right there. But we could change that link to http://www.nbc.com, and the link for Bull on this page will go to nbc.com. If we change the link to the picture on this page to nbc.com, will it change the link to the poster on the index page to nbc.com?
No.
No, right? Just because it's the same picture on 2 different pages, this link is specific to this page. There's no relationship just because this poster exists on multiple pages. Each poster on each page has its own attributes. So if we change it on one page, it doesn't change it on any other page. If it was in the CSS for whatever reason, and we changed it there, it would apply itself to all pages because every single page is attached to this. And the individual movies template is actually a duplicate of the movies.dwt. So it uses the same CSS too. Could it have different CSS? Yeah, it could,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it could, yeah. And you could actually have multiple CSS files in one HTML document. So you could go to a page and there could be specific CSS associated with a specific plugin that's embedded in your thing. So if there's a certain animation happening with your pictures in some part of your page itself would reference a CSS file that is nested inside of this page. So I've gone and edited websites where it had multiple animations. So let's say you went on the page and there was a ticker, like you have 25 days to sign up for something. And that's a plugin for a company that built a CSS script to run that ticker, because it's a lot easier to run the ticker in CSS than use a third-party plugin like a Shockwave or a PDF file or something like that, which requires a plugin. The CSS is just special script written by a company to run the ticker. Well, inside that page, it will reference CSS that exists in a document inside of this folder called countdown.css. If you wanted to change the beginning point and the ending point of the countdown, let's say it was 25 days and it counts from 0 to 25. If you wanted to change the color, the font size, where it started and where it ended in the countdown, there could be a countdown.css over here that's nested in your HTML that only runs one element of your page. So there could be a countdown CSS file. There could be a swipe animation CSS file where pictures come in and they dissolve together and they disappear. That could be its own CSS file running that behavior in that file. So just know, because this only has one, doesn't mean that there couldn't be more than one in here, and the more than one could be referenced in here. So that's the part of kind of knowing, hunting and pecking and seeing. If you have access to the entire directory, when you open up a file, will it show more than one CSS if there's more than one in the page? It will. So that's the beauty about Dreamweaver. If you open up a page and the page has a ticker that has its own unique CSS, and it has a page swipe that has its own unique CSS, and it has a container property that has its own unique CSS. When you open up the page, it will show each one. The catch is when you click on each one, does this change? Down here. So if we go from source code to CSS, does it change down here?
Yeah.
Yes. So if you click on the next CSS, will it look different than the first CSS?
Yes.
Yes. So you're just looking for the IDs, the behaviors, the attributes. So if you click on the second CSS down here, more than likely, it'll say ticker, hashtag ticker, and then it'll list the properties for the ticker. And if you are in live view, you'll see the countdown on the page. So you're like, it says start equals 0, end equals 25. Well, I want 30 days. If I change end equals 25 to end equals 30, this thing's going to run from 0 to 30, not 0 to 25. So once you realize that when you access the behaviors, it shows it down here. And when you use an HTML editor that understands the relationship, it's the sole reason why we connect over here. It makes it easier to start looking for IDs, looking for behaviors, and realizing if it's in gray and you can't edit it here, click on one of these and see if the grayed out area has an ID, and then find the ID in one of the scripting files. So if it says column 1 and you can't edit it here, click on one of these and see if there's a column 1 that isn't gray. If a column 1 isn't gray, you know that that column 1 matches this column 1 and the properties are in the CSS. Does that make sense? Like there's multiple behaviors that could be pointing to one file, and they all are associated with an ID of some kind, some term that associates to the behavior. So the treasure tracking down, the treasure trail of it is finding the ID name and then finding the file associated to that name that isn't grayed out. If it isn't grayed out, you can change it. Just know that changing it doesn't only affect the file you're changing, it affects the relationship of all the pages that are doing it. So if you change the gradient color in column 1, every page that has a column 1 has a new gradient color. If you change center align to left align, it changes everywhere. You change the picture location, it changes everywhere. The padding, the borders, the whole 9 yards, the percentages, you change it in one location. If it's an ID, which means it's tied to other stuff, it will change in other places. Okay, we did great. So we have 2 pages. So let's close the about. And it's going to ask me to save. I didn't change any CSS, so it didn't ask me to update all those other files. If I edited any CSS, it would say, do you want to change all these files? And I would say, yes, update. We only changed what was on the page. So let's open up one of your show pages, right? We changed all the names over here to match your shows. So I'm just going to open the top one, which for me is Skinwalker. So you're going to notice at the very, I'm in source code. So I opened up my first TV show, but not in the CSS or anything, just in the source code. Now, you're going to notice a couple of things. The properties of the page are connected to movie, individual underscore movie underscore pages FWW. Was that white in my About Us page? It wasn't. I changed the color. So the content area of my individual movie pages are tied to the individual movies DWT. So if I wanted to change that, I need to go back into my individual movies.dwt and make adjustments. So just know the individual pages for the shows have their own wireframe. Yes, the elements are the same in a lot of cases because I made a duplicate copy.
So on the sides, index HTML.
Mhm.
I have my height as auto.
Yes, because the length of the ASI is different than the length of the content area because those are 2 things locked at a width that have an auto height based on the content area length. So there creates that little notch because this column and this column have preset widths to snap together, but based on how much content is in this area creates the difference of how long that area is, if that makes sense. So that is a floating number, so there will always be an indent there because the adjustment is based on the content, which we call the fold. So like a newspaper that folds over, you try to get all the information so the fold equals that, and that you're not putting information that goes under the fold. But the nature of the posters are, it's longer than the ASI column because of the pixel difference. So there will only be one. So the trick for a lot of designers is they make the colors the same. So, and that way it doesn't matter how long the content area is, the ASI will be the same. Yep. All right, so let's get in here now. And what page am I on? I'm in Skinwalker. So let's just take a look at what I have going on here. So here is my text for the H1. I've got to change this to Skinwalker Ranch. I can actually change this to the secrets of. All right, so there it is. I need to change this to History Channel Tuesday nights. I think it's 9 p.m. So I'm just editing my individual movie page to give me the information that is specific to my show. That's all I'm doing. You'll notice it's gold because the H2 was gold in my original movie.dwt, and my individual movie page is a duplicate of that, which points to the same scripting folder. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And so now you'll see I have the movie pick. This one is a little bit bigger. So if I change this image to Skinwalker, so you should notice that the poster in the individual page of Skinwalker is bigger than the poster on the index page. So when I was grabbing images, I made sure they were big, like 2000 pixels, because the individual movie pages have bigger posters than the home page. So if this was a really small picture, it would look all distorted on the individual movie page because it would have to stretch it up. So kind of a best rule of thumb is that when you're collecting assets to put in the images folder, when you're building it, grab really big pictures, because you never know when you want to use a big picture and you never know when you want to use a little picture. But if the big picture becomes little, it's still clear. But if it's a little picture and you have to make it big, it looks like you licked your thumb and smeared the picture. It gets really blurry. You don't really want that. And today's day and age, download speeds. I mean, I posted a presentation I was giving at a nonprofit up on my website, and the PDF that I was presenting, because I wanted all high-res images, was 35 meg. And I got to the place, the nonprofit, and they only had wireless internet. So I pulled up my website and pulled up the PDF. Dude, it's still loaded like really pretty good, pretty fast, even though the file was 35 meg. So the idea of using small pictures isn't as big of a deal because the internet, the speed of our downloads is much better now. So, all right, so I'm just going to replace this text and this image, right? So our goal for the end of the evening, we're at 8:52, is to edit 2 movie pages or 2 show pages. So I want you to go in and just in the content areas, everything else has already been edited. We're just going to change the title, change the subtag, change the picture, and change a basic description of it to be your TV show. And if we can get that done, we will have edited the CSS, the movies.dwt, the index page, the about page, and 2 show pages. We will have completed, bless you, chapter 3 and 4 submission. We will have completed out of book project 1, and we will have also completed out of book project 2. So we'll be able to give this file in all 3 locations. All right, so now I need a write-up for Skinwalker. So I guess I have to go out to Skinwalker in order to, a new window, Skinwalker Ranch. The secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. What I need is I need some text. So I'm just going out to the page that is Skinwalker Ranch, and I'm going to copy the beginning of this paragraph here. So here's my information. So I'm just going to highlight it and right click on it and copy it. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go into my code. I like to go into the code side of my write-up instead of pasting it in the live view. So I'm going to go in here and highlight this. And I'm just going to do paste. The reason I go into the code view and paste my description is because I don't want any of the XML, the behaviors attached to the text on the web page that I'm copying to potentially transfer over if I paste in the design view side. If you paste it in the code view, it makes it plain text. It strips the scripting out of it. So if there was a hyperlink or something embedded in the text you were copying, if you put it up here, it will associate the hyperlink. So you can always tell the web designers that don't really know what they're doing because they'll scrape text and put it into their site and they'll paste it in design view or not plain text, and it'll actually link to other people's content. So they'll have links in their page, hyperlinks connected in their content, and it'll reference some other's website with the content and they'll actually go to it. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? You just took it from somewhere else. So if you paste it into the code view, it makes it plain text. And remember, when we wrote our HTML, we wrote it in plain text. All right, so there's my information. Oh, and looky here. There is an iframe to the TV show. Now, when we did my first web page, remember, we went to YouTube, we went to share, and we went to iframe, and we copied it. You only have to paste it in the iframe. So you see where it starts iframe and ends iframe? You don't need the div ID, which is movie, and close div ID. So you want to paste iframe for iframe. So iframe starts right there and it ends right there. You want to leave the top babushka doll, right? It's the babushka doll. You open it, div ID open, div ID close, iframe inside of it. So when we swap it out, we want to make sure we swap it out. Now you will notice most iframes when you copy from YouTube have a width of 560. And that's pretty much the standard copy.
If you have the video on your own device, would be also like how we have images filer, which you do a video.
Yeah, if you want to dump a video in there to be MP4 or whatever, but I wouldn't recommend that. Like when I do work for nonprofits and they shoot videos of events and things, I make them open a YouTube channel and upload the videos to the YouTube channel because A, it compresses the videos, and B, this loads a lot smoother when it's pointing to your YouTube channel than when it's a 50 meg video floating in your images folder. Will it load? Yes. Will it take a little time? Yes. And the beauty about nesting it, like putting it in a YouTube channel, is that you get the YouTube property. So you can save it, you can make it a favorites.
Like
Like
you had your own multimedia platform, would you say that'd be fine?
Mhm.
Or still just use?
I prefer YouTube. And I'll be honest, the reason I do
I'm
is
talking about
because-
like an organization, not from this.
yeah.
An organization that have my own, like, Adrian too.
I don't know, whatever you're doing, like maybe you were off-roading or overlanding or something, you're shooting a bunch of videos, you wanted to put it on your website. I still would recommend a YouTube platform style of thing, because remember, there's affiliation and subscription embedded in those things as well. So let's say you have a hobby and you like to overland and you go out all over Florida and you shoot video of it and you tell people how cool it is, and when you hit a subscription level, you then have an affiliation you can attach to that, paid subscribers, advertising, promotional stuff. If you have it in your own multimedia solution, you can't as easily generate third-party revenue as you can as your own channel. So I kind of lean everyone, because if you have a thing you like and you shoot video for it, odds are someone else is going to like it too. And you might as well generate revenue from the thing you like that someone else might like. So I mean, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. Like Keep Lee County Beautiful, I'm on the board of, and they do events all the time, the yearly Keep Clean stuff. I made them set up a YouTube video. They shoot every event they go to. They post it on YouTube. I help them embed the videos in their events page, and they also can get paid subscribers once they hit a certain level to see their content. So it's kind of a slam dunk. Now you do pay an affiliation fee, right? YouTube always gets their part. But where else are you going to get a controlled PayPal platform where they're paying you monthly based on people subscribing to or saving your content that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else? So when you go into your picture, normally your picture does have a unique ID. You can actually just change that unique ID to match the unique ID of your video, and it would do the exact same thing. But for your project 2 out of book, you need 2 video pages completed. If you want to go wild and change all your video pages, your show pages over, have at it. Practice makes perfect. So, but for your completed of out of book 2, you need to have 2 of your show pages edited. But if you have 2, you might as well just upload it for all the projects, chapters 3 and 4, out of book project 1 and out of book project 2 for learning module 2. So I'm just going to save this. It shows, and I'm just going to open it up in my browser so you can see it. And so I just opened my index file in my browser. I got out of Dreamweaver and opened it up in my browser just so that you can see that the links work. So home goes to home, about goes to about. Right? All this stuff links. So we did a pretty good job. Just remember that this folder is what you need to zip up to give to me. I need the entire folder. That way I can see that you edited the template, you edited the CSS, you edited the index and the about page, and you edited 2 show pages. But once you do that, you can zip that folder up and you can give it to me for, you can give me that zip folder for chapter 3 and 4 project. You can give it to me for about out of the book project 1.10, and you can give it to me for out of book project 2.7. It will cover each of those skills. So it basically kills 3 birds with 1 stone. Remember, you still have to read chapter 3 and 4 because there's a quiz for chapter 3 and 4.
You said change, after doing all this, after changing the two individual pages. submitted to-
Just zip it, zip the folder, and you can give it to me for 2.7, which is our out of book for this week. You can give it to me for 1.10, which was our out of book project. We started this project last week. And you can also give it to me for chapters 3 and 4, because this is basically editing the CSS and building the wireframe. Some students have already given me chapter 3 and 4, which is perfectly fine. But if you haven't, you can give me this in lieu of chapter 3 and 4. Just know that you have to read because there's a small quiz associated with chapter 3 and 4.
Chapter 5.
Mhm. That is a static wireframe chapter. I believe it actually gives us an image of the wireframe. So,
I read through it.
so you just give me back a screenshot of the page. Yeah, chapter 5, yeah, that's why we did wireframe in here. Chapter 5 is just showing you the elements of the wireframe, so you can just give me a screenshot of that. Chapter 6 does have us editing the template that is in your book. I would like you to do that for homework. It's not hard. It's editing the very basic properties of the wireframe template. That is the travel site that is associated with your book. And it's what we did here. It's just, I would like you to, I didn't give you a quiz for that one. That is the one out of book project I would like you to do this week. Everything else we've completed in class.
So assignment 2.5, chapter 5 project, that's just a screenshot. of
Screenshot.
what we did.
Screenshot, yeah. Yep. Yeah, they don't really ask you, they just analyze the elements of your wireframe, and that's what we talked about with our ID properties in tonight's lecture. And they have a nice travel template. I mean, it's a nice wireframe, but yeah, we did that here. So that is just a screenshot. 6 is editing their template. I would like you to try to do that for homework because it is the same thing we did here, but it's to their travel site file that's in your book. And that's just a reinforcer. So you should only have for homework any quizzes you haven't taken. And if you didn't get a grade that you loved, I do give you a chance to take it one more time. So one of the first chapter 1 and 2 or chapter 3 and 4 quiz. If you haven't completed those, please do them by next week. If you haven't done your discussion board post, please do that by next week for week 2. And read and try the chapter 6 template file, but it's the same file we did here, just their movie travel file. So nothing should be new to you. Just read through it and make the edits to theirs. But remember, you have to zip lesson 6 to me, the whole lesson 6 folder. Do not give me about us page or index page or anything like that. Give me the whole folder. And that will prep us for next week. And next week, we're going to go in and I'm going to show you some tools for cloud-based coding. So we're going to look at what a wireframe looks like in a cloud environment. We're going to take a look at what CSS looks like in a cloud environment. We're going to take a look at what the local file relationship is in a cloud. Bless you. in a cloud environment. I'm going to reference everything we did the first 2 weeks locally here in a cloud environment. So I can just reinforce the elements, where they're located, what they look like, and how you edit them. We edit them locally today. We will edit them in the cloud environment next week. It'll be the same terms, same everything, just a different platform, which will free you up from Dreamweaver. So you may decide that you do your final project in a cloud environment, not in Dreamweaver, and it's 50-50. Some students will just want to build a couple of pages in Dreamweaver using the template, and some will choose to build a couple of pages in a cloud environment. But it's the same expectation. You edit the template, you edit the code, and you edit the page. So whether you do it in Dreamweaver or in a cloud environment, it will be up to you. But either way, we have to edit both. And I have to say I'm a little bit rougher on the cloud environment because it is a little easier. So I don't want any broken links or something that isn't working, because the cloud environment is easier in my opinion, but it's easier to mess up too. Yeah, that's the point. That
Once
is,
you're in the industry,
that's the
They invite
point.
you.
That's the point. Yep. So it's about 9:10 almost. So when you get done what you got to get done, you're more than welcome to save, close out, make sure you have whatever you have. If I need to sign something, I can sign something for you guys. Does anyone have their attendance sheet tonight, or no, or just bring it next week or whatever?
I never got one.
You did? You probably don't need one then. I just signed it if you need me to sign it. You can bring it next week or whatever. It's no big deal, yeah. Yeah, no big deal either way. So if you're good, you're good. And just be here 6:30 on the dot next week, because we got to hit the ground running again. I mean, we really got to kind of keep going. I'm just going to turn off the projector so I can post the lecture. I'm going to close the lecture.